A very good morning, children. Yesterday, in the last session, we have learnt about the fungi and also protista, the two kingdoms, protista and fungi. We have also learned the characteristic features of these two kingdoms, right? So, what are the animals which are there and what are the plants which are there in these two kingdoms and how they are classified and what basis they are classified, and also we try to see the differences between these three kingdoms. So today we are going to come to the fourth kingdom, which is the kingdom called as PLANTAE. So the kingdom called as PLANTAE. It's a very important topic and you need to concentrate a bit more on this particular topic. So now the first point we are going to talk here is that these organisms which are in the PLANTAE kingdom are multicellular. They are the multicellular organisms. Now what is multicellular? The organism which is made up of many cells is called a multicellular organism. Example, you can take man. Example, you can take a mosquito. Example, you can take a small algae also. So all these organisms, right, whether it belongs to the animal kingdom or plant kingdom, most of the maximum of them are the multicellular, except monoderms, except some protista, and also except one or two fungi, right? So apart from that, maximum organisms living on this earth are multicellular. And the second one here is that they are all eukaryotes. They're all eukaryotes. That means these organisms have membrane bound organelles. The nucleus is, the DNA is surrounded by a membrane, and all the things like the cell organelles are absolutely distinct. So now on the basis of that, eukaryotes and multicellular, so that is the first thing which we are studying here. And the second thing which we study here is that these organisms are autotrophs. Now what are autotrophs? The organisms which are able to prepare their food on their own are called as autotrophs. These autotrophs can prepare their food on their own, right? So they don't depend on any other organism for their food material because they prepare their own food material. So that is a point which we have to remember. Now, why they are able to prepare their food material? Because of this pigment which is called as the chlorophyll, and also the chloroplast which contains the chlorophyll. Because of this, they are able to undergo a process called as the photosynthesis, and they are able to prepare their own food material, right? So because they are able to prepare their own food material, we are calling them as autotrophs. And how they are preparing the food material? Because of the chlorophyll and also the chloroplast, and also depending upon the sunlight and carbon dioxide and minerals from the soil. All these things, they will help the plant to prepare their own food material. And we should say one thing here, that these plants are there on the earth even before the animals were born, because if there are animals and there are no plants, now the animals would have died because there is no food production system. So these plants are the ones which are producing the food to each and every organism on the earth, whether it is a direct process or whether it is a indirect process, that doesn't matter. But plants are able to prepare food for each and every organism on the earth. Every organism on the earth, they have to depend upon the plants for their food material. Okay, so that is the 2 points which we ought to discuss. Right now, coming to the next point, that is now what is the basis of the classification? How these animals, how these plants are classified? What is the basis of the classification? The first thing is that, right, what is the way or what is the method they acquire the food? Whether it is an autotroph or whether it is a heterotroph, what is the way of acquiring the food material? And then coming to the what are the reproductive structures? What is the way of the, what are the reproductive structures, right? On the basis of that also they are classified. And third one is the reproduction. Third one is the way of reproduction in the organisms. So that is also a way on which the organisms are classified, right? So these are the three ways, or you can say this is a basis of classification of the kingdom called as PLANTAE. So the first one is how the way they acquire the food, okay, the way the reproductive structures work, and also the way what the reproduction. Okay, there are 3 points on which the classification is based. Now coming to the very important topic, that is, now what are the levels of the classification? There are 3 levels on which these plants are classified into different groups, right? First one is whether, now this one I'm talking about only PLANTAE kingdom, the kingdom called as PLANTAE. Okay, on these 3 bases, PLANTAE kingdom is completely separated, right? Now in the plant kingdom, again there are several plants, like we cannot even assume how many plants are there on the earth. There are a number of plants on the earth, and all these plants, like they should be divided, they should be classified again. So on what basis these are classified? Okay, on what basis these all plants are classified, that is what we are going to learn now. The first level of classification, the first level of classification of the plants is based on differentiated and also distinct body parts. Whether the parts of the plant are differentiated, whether they are distinct or not. Now we'll try to understand this particular point. So what is differentiated? What is differentiated? Now let me draw a small plant here. You can see here I've drawn a plant here. Now what are there here is the roots. Okay, if you pluck this plant out, and you can see the roots, right? So now the plant, the roots are visible here, and also the stem is also visible here, the leaves are also visible here. That means the plant is differentiated. It is differentiated into 3 different parts here: the roots, stem, and also the leaves. So when there is an embryo in the womb of a mother, it is not differentiated, right? Before it is differentiated, so it is only just like a mass of cells. So only after differentiation, different body parts are formed. In the same way here, okay, if you take only a seed, the baby plant is in the seed, but you cannot see the differentiation, you cannot see the whole plant inside. It has to grow, and then it has to give out the roots, okay, and also give out the stem, give out the leaves, and also now these are the parts which are differentiated and also very much distinct. That means very clear. You can see those differentiated parts here. You can see the differentiated roots, you can see the differentiated leaves, you can see the differentiated stem. So all these are very much visible. All these are very much visible. That's the point, right? The first one is it should have the very well differentiated and distinct body parts. Okay, on that basis the plants are classified, okay, into different groups. That means if you take this point into consideration, that means there are some plants which doesn't have the differentiated parts, isn't it? There are some plants which doesn't have the differentiated parts. So there are differentiated plants which have the differentiated parts. There are plants which doesn't have the differentiated parts. So on that basis, okay, plants are classified. Now the second point on which the plants are classified into different groups, and the second point is special tissues. Special tissues. Now we'll take the example of the same plant here, right? Now see, these are the roots, and what you do is you will pour the water, isn't it? You will pour the water. Now that water which you pour here, it is not for the roots. Are you pouring it for the roots, or do you want only the roots to be alive? No, that should travel to each and every part of the body, isn't it? It should travel to each and every part of the body, and all you can say the water should be conducted to each and every part of the body. That means it should go to the leaves also, isn't it? They have to travel like this. There are plants which are 300 meters high, even 300 feet high, and all these plants also, like the top of the top leaf also should get the water. That means they should be transported. The water should be conducted to even to that particular part. Okay, then there should be some special tissue which should be carrying that to the different parts of the plant, and that is called as the xylem. It's called as the xylem. And then whatever the food is prepared here, so we have seen the conduction of water. So conduction of water is by the xylem vessels. And what's next? Whatever the food which is prepared in the leaves and all, that should be again transported to different parts of the plant. So how they are transported, right? How they are transported? So they are transported with the help of another vessel-like structure, which is a pipe-like structure, which is called as the phloem. Okay, and this phloem is helping in the conduction of food. So what are the food which is prepared here, that will be brought to the different parts of the plant with the help of the phloem. So phloem and xylem together are called as the vascular bundles. They are together called as the vascular bundles. Now these vascular bundles are the special tissues which you are talking about here. So the special tissues which you are talking here is the vascular bundles. So these vascular bundles are the ones which are the special tissues which are helping in the conduction of the water and also conduction of food here. So now that means there are some plants which doesn't have these special tissues which are called as the vascular bundles. So plants are also differentiated in such a way whether the plants have the vascular bundles or not, or the plants, whether the plants have the vascular bundles or the plant do not have the vascular bundles. So if there are plants with the vascular bundles, they are kept in some other group. If they don't have the vascular bundles, they are kept in some other group. So they are also classified into different groups on this basis. Now the third one, ability to bear the seeds, whether the plants have the capability or ability to bear the seeds or not, whether you can see the seeds on the plant or not. Okay, if you see the plants, if you don't see the seeds, then it is into other group. If you see the seeds, again they are into other group, they are classified into other group. Now if that is the case, if there are seeds, if the plants are able to bear the seeds, whether they are enclosed, whether they are not enclosed. Are they enclosed? Like, for example, if you take a mango, they are in the fruit. If you take the pine and cypress, they are outside directly outside. You can see them. Okay, but whereas you cannot see the seeds which are in the mango, you cannot see the seeds which are in the apple, isn't it? So they are enclosed. The seeds are enclosed. But whereas in pine and cypress plants, which are the most plants which you go to when you go to the hill stations and all, you can find those kind of trees over there. So in those plants and all, they are completely outside, right? You can directly see them. You can see the seeds out. So on that basis, on these three bases, right? So the first level of classification, especially we are talking about the differentiated and distinct body parts, and second one is special tissues, especially we are talking about the vascular bundles, and third one is ability to bear the seeds, and we are talking about the enclosed or not enclosed, whether the seeds are enclosed or are they not enclosed in the fruit. So that is what on this basis the plants are classified into different groups. Okay, now these all things, like we are not talking about how they are classified under the kingdom, how they are classified in the kingdom, under the kingdom, right? On the basis of how they acquire the food and how they reproduce and what are the reproductive structures. On this basis, what we have done the classification and kept the Plantae as a separate kingdom. Okay, but now what are these three classes here? First level of classification, second level of classification, and third level of classification. We are talking about the classification of plants. We are talking about the classification of plants under different groups, okay, in the kingdom of Plantae. Okay, so that is what is all the basis of the classification, right? I hope you understood this one. Shall we go to the next point? Okay, so now we'll see how these plants are classified into different groups. So now here, as we have discussed earlier, now the plant kingdom is divided into two groups, right? One is the cryptogams and second one is the phanerogams. When we come to the cryptogams, these are the plants which doesn't flower and also will not bear the seeds. Okay, that means the plants which don't have the flowers, at the same time they also will not have the seeds. So those kind of plants are classified under the cryptogams. And whereas when you come to the phanerogams here, these are the flowering plants and also seed bearing plants. So these all plants which are under the phanerogams, what they do is they flower, they give out the flowers, at the same time they also bear the seeds. They also bear the seeds. So the first classification is cryptogams and phanerogams. Now coming to the cryptogams, they are again divided into two groups. One is Biophyta, second one is Pteridophyta. First one is Biophyta, second one is Pteridophyta. So when you see the Biophyta, right, so they have the false roots and also false leaves. They don't have, see, when you see that particular Biophyta, plants which belong to the Biophyta, especially when you take the moss plant, okay, it doesn't have the true leaves and also true roots, right? It's a moss plant which is also called as an amphibian plant. That means it stays on the land, and when it's a time for the reproduction, it needs the water. That's why we call this plant as an amphibian plant. So now the first thing is that, now just remember the things which we have learned in the first level of classification, second level and third level of classification. Here they don't have the differentiated distinct parts of the plant. That means they don't have the proper roots, proper stem or the proper leaves. Here they will have the false roots and also false leaves. That's why they are under the separate group which is called as the Biophyta. And also the second thing is that they don't have the vascular bundles, that is special tissues, right? We have talked about the special tissues which are called as the vascular bundles to conduct the conduction, for the conduction of food and also for the conduction of water. They don't have them. They don't have them. That's why they are under the group called as Biophyta. So here now, if it is under cryptogams, it is non-flowering plants and the non-seed bearing plants are all under the cryptogams, and again those plants are divided into two groups. Again, one is Biophyta and second one is the Pteridophyta. And coming to the Pteridophyta, this Pteridophyta is the the plants which we usually keep in our ornamental plants. The plants which are used as ornamental plants in our home and all of those all comes under the Pteridophyta. They have the true roots, they have the true stem, they have the true leaves and all, but they don't flower. They don't flower, so that you will not see any flowers in that. Even if you take the moss plant here, if you see it very clearly, you can observe some kind of structures just like flowers. But when you go and when you use a microscope and check it clearly, they are not flowers. They are not flowers. Their mode of reproduction is spores. Their mode of reproduction is spores, right? The top part, which is called as the sporangia. Okay, the top part is called as the sporangia, which will give out the spores, and spores are the mode of reproduction in the moss plants. Okay, I'm writing here spores. So spores, through spores they will reproduce. And now coming to the Pteridophyta. Okay, these are all the ornamental plants. What are the plants which you see in the Pteridophyta? They are basically ornamental plants. So when you go to some gardens and all, you will find a particular leaf over there which is called as a fern plant, and you will see all brown color structures like this. Okay, this plant is called as the fern plant, and this plant doesn't give out the flowers, and their mode of reproduction is through these spores. Okay, so that is how these plants which are in the Biophyta and Pteridophyta, they are not giving out any seeds and all, they don't give out any flowers or seeds and all, and also they don't have the proper, some of them will not have the proper roots and also leaves, so they are not differentiated. So that's how we come to the end of the cryptogams. And now come to the phanerogams here, right? Now, as the topic suggests, it is the you can see the plants which are flowering plants and also seed bearing plants. So what are the plants which are there in this group? They are the flowering plants. That means they give out the flowers, and also they bear the seeds. They give out the seeds also, right? And so what first of all we can say is the gymnosperms. The phanerogams are divided into two. One is the gymnosperms and second one is the angiosperms. So when you come to the gymnosperms are called as the naked seeds. They are called as the naked seeds. Okay, so gymno in the sense naked, sperma in the sense seeds. So here gymno in the sense naked and sperma in the sense seeds. So that's why they are called as the naked. That means you can see these seeds outside. If you see a pine plant and all, like the leaves are like this, and you can see the seeds which are out like this. Okay, so the seeds are directly visible to us. They are not enclosed in any fruit or something. Okay, so that's why we call it as naked seeds. Okay, gymnosperms means naked seeds. And the second group is the angiosperms. And here you can see that the seeds are enclosed in a fruit. The seeds are enclosed in a fruit. So here you can see the seeds are enclosed in a fruit. That means if you take an apple or if you take a mango, the seeds are inside, isn't it? So when you break the apple or when you cut the apple, you can see the seeds inside. So that's why these are classified under the group which are called as the angiosperms. And angiosperms is that the seeds are enclosed in the fruit. Now on that basis, you can take the example of the apple, mango, etc. So again, on basis of these seeds, right, again they are divided into monocots and the dicots. So already we have discussed what are monocots and what are dicots. If you really missed it, you can go back to your video sessions and all and find the monocots and the dicots. Otherwise, I'll try to give the link. Monocots and dicots. Monocot in the sense one seeded leaf, and the dicots in the sense two seed leaves. So these are the false leaves, okay, which actually store the food for the seeds which are germinating. Till the leaves comes out, what is the food is there that is supplied by these two cotyledons. So some of them will have one cotyledon, some of them will have the two cotyledons. So this is how the plants are classified. The plants are classified. Hope you all understood this topic, which is called as the kingdom Plantae. And tomorrow we will start the new session, that is kingdom Animalia. So it might take 1 or 2 sessions. Okay, so it's a very important topic also, because we are going to see the 10 phylums which are in the Animalia. Okay children, see you then, see you tomorrow. Have a great day. Take care. Bye.